the world of professional wrestling, Mr. Versace Soda.
Welcome. Thank you for having me on. Thanks. Another great KTB episode. I'm very excited for this one. Every time I come on, I can't say it. It's always entertaining because you get some of the greatest guests in the world, not in the area, in the world.
Especially with our guest today. He is the Capital City champion. He is one of the emerging heroes in Nordic Pro Wrestling, all the way from Sweden. God bless him for spending his evening with us. He is the one and only Kenzein. Sir, how you doing today?
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. I just noticed you're from the same training camp as Marcus of Man.
That's right. Actually, Marcus of Man is currently our head coach at Steel Tracks, which is our training facility in Stockholm. Him and Alice Inc. run that training facility together. So I'm a kind of a product of their schooling.
I really just noticed that. I was just like, Steel Tracks, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
That seems to be the school to be at, though. I mean, right now it's getting a lot of press over there, and even over here, I'm hearing things. So it's like you guys are doing something good.
Yeah. I hope so. I currently am also one of the coaches there. I help train all like the people that are just starting off with wrestling. So help them going through like the basics of wrestling, character work, lockups, and ring positioning and these things. So I mean, yeah, without those two, I think the Stockholm scene would be a lot rougher. So like big props to them.
What do you think is one of the secrets of their success?
Well, they're both very passionate. Marcus of Man is like very much a student of the game, and Alice Inc. She's has such a background in combat sports from the past, and she has a lot of techniques from that part. But I mean, they're both amazing in the ring, outside the ring. Amazing people. So I would say like their passion to want to build the scene in Stockholm or in Sweden to get people in. There is not a huge, but there is a growing scene within Stockholm, and the more people, the more eyes they see of the wrestling scene in Sweden, the more people would like to come and try it out. So yeah, a lot of passion from them.
We just had Alice Inc. on yesterday, actually, and she's such a sweetheart. I see her accomplishments. I'm like, okay, she's gonna be like a tough, tough cookie, and she's such a sweetheart. She's such a great gal.
I mean, she can be tough when push comes to shove, but I mean, she's like she said, she's a sweetheart. So.
I mean, if you look at it, I mean, KTB in the last maybe month or so has had probably some, if not like some of the top stars of Nordic wrestling on its show. I mean, almost everybody. I mean, including Starbuck himself came on, and it's just such a thriving scene right now. I mean, I guess it's a newer scene, is what I've told. All around regionally, it's just starting to catch on. It hasn't been a 20-year thing going on or something like the States where it's been around for 80 years and, companies. But I feel like right now more than ever, I'm hearing people, traveling, within, Europe to get down there and go down there.
Yeah. I mean, the scene in Sweden is growing. And like you said, there's not a lot of lineage there, but there are... people are talking about it. Like I hear all the time that the Scandinavian scene in general is growing, especially in Denmark. And Finland's doing fantastic as well. And we have a lot of like collaborations. We have a lot of people around that Nordic scene that's getting to know each other and getting to wrestle each other. So it's cool to be part of something that's kind of growing. And we're kind of, my goal with wrestling in Sweden is to hopefully bring that to the next level or make it more widely available and not so much of a niche thing. So
what do you think would take it to get to that point? Because like in the U.S., it's pretty familiar. It's not niche. There is niche wrestling, like hardcore wrestling and stuff, but general wrestling is pretty well overall perceived as a sport almost. What would it take for you to get like Sweden on that level? You think?
I think just exposure is probably the main thing, because whenever people come and see us wrestle for the first time, well, I always hear the same like kind of feedback, and that's, wow, I never knew this existed, and now that it did, now that I know now that I do know, this is like an amazing show. Like so I think we're doing something right, but it's just like getting the exposure out, having people understand like that wrestling does exist in Sweden. People tend to, whenever I talk to people about wrestling here, they kind of automatically go to like the amateur style wrestling as just their first thing, and then I have to kind of explain. No, it's kind of like you have to lead them on, like, oh, Hulk Hogan or the Undertaker, and those are usually names that are household names, and then they kind of get it. So once they understand that, then they become intrigued and want to see or know more about it. Many times do I have to stop myself in conversations with people that don't know anything about wrestling. I have to stop myself from going too much into it because I can talk about it for like hours. So so it's nice to see that there's an intrigue for it, and I think just like having a bit more exposure would help with growing the Stockholm and Swedish wrestling scene as a whole.
Now, how did you get hooked into wrestling? How did you find it?
I mean, I've been like a lifelong wrestling fan. So like grew up with WCW mainly, and then to WWF. And then a little bit throughout my so when I moved to Sweden, I originally born outside of Sweden, and when we moved here, there wasn't any wrestling at all, like not on TV, nowhere. So I just figured that, okay, well, this kind of interest of mine doesn't exist here. And back then, the internet wasn't like that huge. I mean, I you would probably download a few wrestling clips here and there from like Kazaa or like LimeWire or something like that, just to kind of have that. Video games for me was a huge kind of a way to kind of stay interested in it. And so, but I kind of just left that as like, oh, it's a passing interest of mine. Then a friend of mine heard about that there was a promotion in Stockholm, and he begged and pleaded for me to come with him because he was afraid to go by himself because he didn't know like what would happen or like what kind of people would be there. And at first I was like, I don't know, maybe like, it was such a thing that I thought about when I was younger. I don't know if that's a thing for me now. And he begged, and then I finally conceded, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll go with you. And ever since that moment or the first trainings, I was kind of hooked. It was something that I just felt an itch for, and I feel like that kind of childhood dream or passion was like, okay, this does exist, and I can work with it, and I have an understanding of it and things like that. So that was about 10 years ago. So 2014 is when that was. So up until from then to now, it's just been a thing that's been taking more and more of my time and passion, or more of energy and passion. So yeah, that's kind of the origin story for that.
Nice. And now's the time to be it. I mean, there's wrestling all over Europe. I mean, you got great wrestling in Germany, England, like you said, Scandinavia, all over the place. And if you want to work, you can start traveling. You can do a world tour.
Yeah. I just came actually from Germany a few days ago. So the WXW, a huge promotion in Germany, had their tag festival. So I was there to both watch and then like be part of training seminars with the academy there at WXW. So awesome. Cool experience.
Yeah, that's like one of the promotions, and there's a few others. I mean, obviously, that we'll watch. We don't get to see them all, though. We have to kind of search for them. But some of them we do get to actually like see on networks and wrestling networks and different channels here in the States. WXW being one of them. I know of a few guys actually here from here that have went over there to fight and wrestle. And it's always cool to see, that international kind of barrier be broken one way or the other, even when they come here.
Yeah, and you see stars from the indie scene around Europe and UK and Japan and the US show up at these kind of big shows that they have. I mean, just saw Matt Cardona last week, and I saw what's his name? Just a few Japanese legends there where had a few matches, and it's just one of those things that I think when you see it on your TV for many years, and then you kind of just all of a sudden you're there in the room with Fujiwara, and then you're just like, whoa, didn't expect that to be something in my life that I would experience. So it's an awesome thing to be a part of.
For Sashi, I was curious, what the feedback from your side?
Is what?
A little feedback.
Yeah, I am hearing something. I was wondering where. That's why I was kind of like looking around.
Could be the connection, for all I know. I mean, we are like across the world. Did I mention anything and everything can happen on this show? And we just roll with the punches.
It's just like wrestling, sometimes things don't go as planned, and then you just gotta quickly improvise and find a solution. So been part of that a few times.
I mean, everything looks good here. I don't know. Is it still doing it?
I don't hear it.
Okay.
A little bit, but it's not too distracting. I hope, at least.
I'm not hearing a full echo. I've had that happen where people come on and like they'll say something, and then like a little bit later it'll just be repeated again.
Well, maybe if it helps, I can try to mute between answers.
That's a story. I'm cool with everything. If you guys
Okay. I'm cool.
I'm cool. Just stories that we you about what happened during a recording, but I'll save that for another time. So, what countries have you wrestled in?
Not so many right now. I've wrestled for Sweden and different cities in Sweden, and wrestled in Finland. And those are kind of the two countries I've been in so far. But I'm hoping that soon I'll be able to go to Denmark. They have a scene that's really exploding right now, and there's a lot of people there that I've gotten to know. So trying to keep on a lookout for things in Denmark right now.
What do you think is the most in Stockholm?
Sorry, the echo seems to be coming back. Could you repeat that? Yeah, it's a bit worse now than it used to be.
What do you think is the one of the pinnacle events that's for Stockholm wrestling that is getting them more and more on the map? What do you think the reason behind this?
Well, Stockholm wrestling has kind of a staple show every year, which is called There Will Be Blood, and it's actually in 2 weeks' time, approximately, we'll have that show. It's kind of like our WrestleMania of Stockholm wrestling.
Oh, it's a big one.
Yeah, it's the big one. And usually that show is obviously, as the name entitles, it's very much like a ending of feuds. Like there could be blood. I mean, there will be blood. That's what it's called. So it's kind of like all these big rivalries kind of get to their climax or their absolute limit. And that show has been running since, for 10 years, like that specific event. So in 2 weeks' time, I have a title bout against a Danish guy called Benny Bacchus. And he's a character, so got to be on my toes for him.
What do you think? What we talked about off the air, Versace and I, is about how about international wrestling has that magic, has the it factor that we grew up and love about wrestling. Meanwhile, right now, American wrestling is so just, I don't say watered down, but it's like the magic gets hidden because of like this social media bantam, what it
Yeah.
money back and forth. What do you think keeps international wrestling so pure and so magical?
Well, I think it's because you have, this mixing of wrestlers from all over the world that are, journeymen. They're traveling to do this. It's like it becomes part of your everyday life to travel and get bookings. Um, and perhaps it's also like, some countries might not have like a huge wrestling scene, but they have a lot of fans. And so they might be able to just have a show once in a while. So I believe because of that, like there's not this overexposure in a sense of wrestling. So whenever there is a show or if there is an event, it becomes this huge thing, and it draws wrestlers from different parts of the world, and it kind of gets like this. People can get their names out that way. So I think probably a combination of uh, like the non-exposure of it, or the not the overexposure of it in these countries, and the fact that wrestling has been around for so long, and there's internet fans all over the world. So they're really hungry for it. In the U.S., you can find wrestling pretty much so easy. Like it's so easy to get by. I mean, people have. I mean, the WWE has shows around the U.S. all the time. They're touring, so to be able to see these stars is less of it's much easier. So probably that's, I would say, why the kind of the world scene is a little bit different, or the international scene is a bit different.
The reason why I think that is because entrance Marcus Mann did when Siraj Moore played the violin. And when I saw that, I cannot describe the feeling, but it was like I got excited and felt like to cry because it was beautiful at the same time.
Mm.
And that's something that you don't see in American wrestling.
Yeah, I think like there's very few or no promotions that have the same budget as like a WWE or AEW have, and I think when you have limitations in that sense, that kind of breeds creativity. Like what can we do with this box that we have, and how can we bring the best out of it? And so you got to be creative to bring something different and bring something people haven't seen.
Most
And I think,
definitely. Most definitely. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say most definitely. I was gonna say I think sometimes all the production, it almost waters. It can water it down. Like I look at a movie, right? Like you could have a really good movie, and then you could take that great story and throw in all these special effects and action scenes, and all of a sudden that movie just becomes eh. But you keep it kind of simplistic and go a little bit less is more attitude, and all of a sudden you got something that's really enjoyable all around. Same thing with wrestling. Sometimes all that, it's nice to have that production, the WWE, the big screen, and all that. But when it starts to look like a movie or of a whole production, it's like that takes away from the matches and the story.
yeah.
And that's kind of why I like the indie scene, because it doesn't have that $1 million budget, but it has the same value of wrestling.
Yeah, and it's also a lot more intimate. Like I feel like when you're watching like highly produced wrestling like on TV, you're kind of taken away from it. There's kind of like a layer in between that's like saying that these people are like kind of untouchable or not really there or not real, if you understand. But then when you're in the wrestling, like an indie promotion, watching it there, the room's a bit smaller, the ring sounds a bit louder, you hear the wrestlers can talk back to the crowd, there's more interactions that way. So
you guys do it, maybe like US, you guys maybe do intermission, you can sell your t-shirts, you guys people can get photos.
Yeah. I mean, usually after our shows, we go out and hang out with the fans, and they always want to take pictures and they want to shake our hands. And it brings them closer to the wrestlers, and the wrestlers closer to the fans. Like we get to see the kind of joy in their eyes, and in that sense, and not just see it through a monitor maybe, or anything like that. So it's really humbling at times.
Awesome. And I also feel like, he mentioned something about, sometimes the social media bitter and banter and all that can take away. Me personally, I haven't noticed that on the indie scene. I feel like most of the fans that go because they enjoy the matches, go because they're fans of the wrestlers. They want to support that scene, not so much create controversy to drag it down, which you do see with WWE and AEW and, other promotions, because everybody wants to be a critic of these high end promotions, and also they cost a lot more money too. You can go to a local show here for $15. If it's not that good, you're not going to complain. If you go to a WWE show and you spend, $7.50 for these tickets and it's a bad show, you're going to be very upset. So I mean, it's also that factor, but I don't see it, and that it makes it more like family like when you walk in. You feel like you start to see the same fans too. So you start to interact with them, and you make friendships and bonds, and it's all over just the wrestling. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think it becomes less of like I'm a bigger wrestling fan than you kind of thing, with like the tribalism aspect of it, and it becomes more like, oh, we're all together here to watch something like great. We're all wrestling fans. We're all here to enjoy it. So let's get into it. And we do see like some people that we call like super fans in Stockholm that come to every show, and they're usually like the loudest, or they call back to things. So that's really awesome to see.
No, definitely, and you need that. And like we have on our scene, I know it hasn't been big in a while, but we got a few people that make like custom signs for the shows, and they bring these big wrestling signs, with their. And one guy does, a bunch of comedy ones. So he'll like make fun of the heels. He'll have them in different, he'll do Photoshop and stuff, make big posters. Really a production. It brings something back to wrestling. When I grew up, everybody had a sign in the shows. I grew up with 80s and 90s wrestling. A lot of posters, a lot of stuff happened, a lot of changes though. One of the things is the sign. But that was, back then a way to be kind of get into the show. You'd bring your sign to try to get it on TV, and if it did, then you would be, the one to, you got your show on. But nowadays it's a little bit different for WWE. But in the indie scene, I'm seeing that come back here any which way. But yeah, like I said, just the scene itself, it's something that intrigued me. I do watch, major wrestling, of course, but for me, I'm more invested in that, into the more like local scene, just because I've seen these guys grow. I've watched them grow, and you being part of the training end of it, you must have seen people grow. You've seen them when they start, you watch when they, some of them finish, some of them go to other countries, some of them get picked up. You never know what can happen. I've seen people start in small halls. Hey, what's up, Michael? I've seen people start in small halls and then end up in WWE. So, I've watched that arc, and it's great to see. It's not something you get to see every day.
Yeah, I mean, a practical example is Walter or Gunther. I mean, like that was someone that really started off in the bare bones of European wrestling scene, and worked their way up to something major. So there's definitely a possibility for, like, if you keep an eye on the indie scene long enough, you might see them in places where you didn't expect. And that's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like I said, I know in the States it's kind of easier for the guys and girls to get on the TV just because they're closer. If a major production runs in the city, you happen to be a good indie wrestler, and most likely you're going to get picked up. But that goes the same thing, with like Finnish wrestling. If you live in Finland and you're a good wrestler, most likely you're going to go and work at Slam.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, you're always going to have your local people that kind of get to move up the level. But the cool thing about, I think, that you guys got in your area is that it's not oversaturated yet. You have your promotions, but there's not a million, millions and millions of things.
Right, right. That's and it's very like segmented in a way as well. Like we have, I think like four major promotions in Sweden, and they all have different parts of the Swedish scene. So we have like two in the southern part. We have kind of two in Stockholm region, but they all have kind of their different niches. So I help promote and help run a promotion called Freedom Pro Wrestling here in Stockholm. Um, and so that kind of promotion is geared towards more towards families and kids, because we kind of felt that even though Stockholm wrestling is draws a big crowd, it's mainly adults, and it's a shame to not have the kids a part of it as well, because wrestling, I believe, is also for all ages. You can make wrestling for all ages as well, and there are families that are fans of wrestling that just can't bring their kids to an adult show, or an adult
No,
oriented show.
and that's something. I mean, I guess growing up, we had little options. WWE was it for me. So I mean, WWF at the time, it was a kid enough friendly show that you could go and watch it at that time in the 80s, 90s. It didn't really get risky until I was already a teenager. But I mean, like where we live and where I live, there's a variety of shows. We got kid friendly shows, which they'll draw 20, 30 kids maybe. You got other shows that are run in other areas that no kids at all. You got brewery shows, no kids there. Other shows there'll be a mixed crowd if people want to bring their kids, and people just work off the crowd. But you do have that chance. I don't think I would bring my son to every show. I brought him to a few of them, but some shows I probably just wouldn't do. Like certain things I wouldn't let him watch on TV, etc.
Yeah, I mean, and like something that was kind of eye opening was when WWE came to Stockholm, and it drew a huge fan. Like it drew a lot of people, and a lot of those people were kids. So imagine like you being this kid that's only seen wrestling live through that kind of forum, which comes maybe once every 5 years. So there's definitely a market for that. So we're trying to like tap into that, trying to tell people like, oh, this show is more family friendly. You don't have to worry about cussing or blood or anything like that. It has maybe more comedic twinge to it, and the kids love it. Like that's their like biggest fans. Like they are always super happy and the loudest. So
And that's what you want, because those are the people that are going to grow up similar to yourself, watching it and want to learn how to do it and become the next generation of wrestlers. You need that to keep it alive. If all the adults are just watching, we're all going to get to an age where training's not happening. So it's like you get to a certain level, it's not worth to go start up. But the kids, that's where you're going to grab that next generation of superstars.
yeah, and they're gonna grow up and they're gonna be still wrestling fans, hopefully, and so that might feed into any future things, promotions or if they go to Stockholm wrestling or whatever. So I think it's like kind of investing in the future of the Scandinavian scene as well, to kind of focus on family friendly entertainment.
Who owns Stockholm Wrestling?
Who owns it?
Who owns it?
It's one guy, one promoter. His I don't know if they would want me to say their name, so I'll hold back from it. But it's mainly one person. He's kind of the producer, and a few of us within the Stockholm scene kind of help out with booking, with commentary. I've done commentary for Stockholm for a while with Shiraz. So I mean, it's kind of like a tight knit group that we kind of help each other out to kind of help produce the show.
So we're just calling him the mysterious mask promoter.
What was that?
We're calling him the mysterious mask promoter.
Yeah, you can call him as maybe a pseudonym. We can call him Henry.
I mean, it's like, well, all the respect towards him is just it's the whole wrestling thing. It's like
What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? You're gonna find out that Vince owns all these companies across Europe for all these years.
Yeah. I mean, if that was the case, like we would probably be selling out arenas, but we're not really there just yet.
Not yet.
Yeah,
You will someday though. That will be happening.
yeah.
Like you said, it's
Knock on
gonna
wood.
take time, but I'm seeing the fires have been started, and the fires are pretty flaming hot. Some of these shows are getting really good press out there. People are making deals with different networks, whether it be IWTV, Trilla, and other platforms that are getting the U.S. audience invested. And once that happens, then you're gonna get more U.S. people that want to come out there and wrestle, and then you get bigger draws and even more eyes and ears. And eventually other people are gonna come out. They're gonna want to open up companies. You'll have even more companies, which it will bring competition, but it will also bring more variety, which is something that can't really hurt. Especially if you got people gearing towards kids, and you want other adult shows. You want that variety. Like I said, that's what makes the scene kind of nice. People can kind of pick and choose where to go to for what their needs are.
Yeah, I mean, it's very niche still. I don't see any other promotion or anything like that as competition. If anything, I mean, like I said, when I first started wrestling, and I wanted the scene to grow. And if more wrestlers, promotions, anything pop up, that's just a healthy sign that this is what the people want, and this is what people are interested in, and this is how they want to be entertained. And I mean, you guys know, there's no other, there's nothing like wrestling. Like wrestling is drama. Wrestling is art. Wrestling is stories. Wrestling is athleticism, combat. I mean, where in the world will you get anything like wrestling? You can't see it anywhere, and it's such a awesome thing to see live. So if people, I really think that if people get their eyes on it, there's kind of wrestling for any kind of person.
Well, see, and that's the thing, and that's what we're here for, kind of in a way, to get the eyes on it, for people to be able to know where to find it, what to watch, what to look for, and that it does exist. I mean, because I think some of it, like you said, when you're in a new area, people might not know. They might, if you don't have regular TV access to WWE, or you don't know about it, you weren't growing up in a wrestling family that watched it, you might not know what it is. And how to find it, where to go. Local shows, if you don't know about it, you have to look for a flyer or something, or be following on social media. But if you don't know these things, you're not following, you're not looking for flyers, you're not doing any of that.
No,
But
exactly.
it doesn't mean that, like you said, there's people out there that might have had a passion back in the day. All of a sudden, there's no wrestling. Oh, but they don't know that it's come back, or they don't know where to find it. And even myself, I didn't know there was an independent scene that was just thriving until I went searching and looking for it in my area. For years, I didn't watch wrestling, and when I came back to watching wrestling, I ended up walking into an indie show, and I was amazed how it changed, because when I grew up in an indie show, it was a couple people here and there in the fans. They didn't have really good wrestlers. They were bringing in WWE stars like Honky Tonk Man and Warlord. Wasn't much of a thing. When I walked in, back in 2018, totally different game. Everybody had stories. Everybody had character, passion, good gear, looked like a wrestler. It was very interesting, and it really just kind of grabbed me, because everybody's story was just like, again, between their story and then the intimacy of the story. Because you're right there. You buy a front row seat, you're there. You might get a wrestler that lands on you. I've seen kids used as weapons. I've seen, all sorts of things happen. So you're part of that show for a second. And, it just sucks you in.
Yeah, 100%. And something that I'm kind of hoping for now that like WWE has kind of struck a deal with Netflix to start streaming or having their shows there, is I hope that like with that exposure of it being on Netflix, that people that don't have to find like some sort of niche streaming page or service to be able to watch wrestling. It'll be in a very popular, very huge platform, and so
that will make them maybe want to look. That will make them want to look maybe for the local scene or what's out there.
100%, 100%.
The reason why I was asking about who was the owner, we were talking about possibly if like Slam Wrestling or Stockholm Wrestling has an event, we can do like a watch along, bring the show more outlets, more eyes of the American people. and see if make sure it's okay. We're not gonna get sued, all that stuff before we did anything. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. And I think that'll definitely be a possibility. I can't really speak for the like Stockholm wrestling side of things, just because I'm not a promoter or the promoter there, but I can definitely shoot that question forward. I know that we've had we've streamed some events online, so I don't find it necessarily impossible for having kind of a watch along, as long as everything is above board from their side.
Yeah, we just watch it. Like, we're just fans.
I noticed you had a title in the back. What title are you holding?
This is the Stockholm Wrestling's Capital City Championship.
Are you the current champion?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I had a awesome match against a guy called Lochinero, kind of like a demonic, psychotic dude. We had a barn burner of a match. He threw me into a chair. It was all fun. But it was such a great honor to be put in that position. Like I said, I've been doing it for 10 years. And to kind of be recognized is really nice. And I've worked on myself for a long time. I used to be, I don't know what the pounds version of it, but I used to be around like 30 kilos heavier about 2 years ago. So I put a lot of time and effort into myself, and it feels like it pays off, not only just in physically what I've done for myself, but also how it pays off in my wrestling acumen. And to be able to get an opportunity to go for the title and win it, it's cool. This title has been held by El Generico at one point. It's been held by Frank Anderson, Swedish wrestling legend. So it's really cool to be part of that lineage as well.
Very nice looking belt too. I mean, it looks really good.
Yeah, you got the 3 crowns, which is a very typical Swedish kind of symbolism. And then it's a nice belt. There's a little bit of blood on it because I couldn't get it off from the last match, but super happy to kind of hold it for. Super cool to hold it, really. And this is what I'm going to be putting on the line in about 2 weeks' time.
The blood builds championship.
Yeah, exactly. It needed a nice polish, so a little bit of blood and vinegar, and you get all the stains out.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah. It wasn't very fine for my family hearing about it, but it's part of wrestling.
Is that match online somewhere that people can see that?
I think it's coming up pretty soon. I'll have to check it out, but I think it's online somewhere.
Whose blood is it?
Mine.
No wonder your family's upset.
Yeah. But when you're there and you're full of adrenaline and the blood's pumping and then you get thrown into a chair, like a lawn dart into a chair in the corner, things happen, blood splurts, and yeah.
What's the hardest weapon you've been hit with?
I mean, I would say, like, it's a kind of a cliche. I've had a few chair shots, and those are hard. And I would say, like, the hardest thing I've been hit by was a chair, and it's because this guy had no chill and just went for it. I think it hit me so hard that like it was so loud that my ears started to ring. Like, that's how hard it hit. And there was no me coming back up after for a few seconds. It was very much like, okay, this is my life now for the next 10 seconds, and I just have to grit my teeth and go through it. But I've been hit by keyboards, kendo sticks. I've fallen into chairs. I've fallen like on concrete. My kind of chiropractor says I'm their best customer because they don't know anybody that puts themselves in trauma every week like I do.
Sounds like me getting my kid ready for school every morning. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean it's I sometimes people ask like, well, you have to be like a little bit what's it called, like when you like pain,
You're gonna be sadistic, right? Or
sadistic or something, but
it's one of those words. But you have to at least enjoy it or be able to tolerate it any which way.
I think anything that kind of feeds to the spectacle or the story is kind of how I go into it. So
yeah, I mean, it's not like, I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, some of the pain is, it's not for nothing. It builds the realism of what's going on in that story. So some of the pain is real. Some of it, sometimes you sell it up, but sometimes you'll get a legit pain spot where it really hurts, and you just, you let out the pain. It's like it works for the story, though. It's part of kind of the thing. I know it doesn't feel the best, but it's part of the job.
I mean, people understand like when someone throws or swings something at someone else that's like a chair or a kendo stick or whatever. People can relate to what that might feel like. So I think it's definitely like a great way to tell that story. Same thing with like chops. Obviously, maybe people have never felt a chop, but they can kind of understand how that might feel. An open hand slap.
I've taken a few chops myself, and it's not fun. It hurts. It hurts really bad. You got to know how to take. You got to actually know how to brace for the pain, breathe the proper way, do a whole bunch of things. Because there's nothing fake about a chop. If anything, that's one of the most realest things that happen because they've almost like, well, let's test each other out. Let's see what we got. Chop me as hard as you can. Go to town. Because it gives a good sound and it looks good. It leaves a mark that says, "Wow, that's real." Okay, here we go.
And it also kind of gets the adrenaline flowing, like the pain, but also like the crowd's reactions, and then you kind of go into a different gear. I think like it helps with a lot more things than just making a good sound.
At least you bring the family to the show so they know where all the slap marks have come from.
Yeah, exactly. As long as they don't see them on the thighs, then it's
yeah. That's where it gets a little weird, right?
Yeah.
So there will be blood. When is the exact date? When it's going to be taking place?
1st of November.
And that's not going to be like aired live or anything like that. We just
not to my knowledge, but we'll see. I know it will definitely be filmed. So clips will come up for it, definitely.
I'm sure, like before the entire event gets released, there'll be a clip here and there and match.
Yeah. I mean, if you check, all the socials or my socials, definitely going to put pictures and videos and clips from that show once after the fact.
Has there ever been like an event where they weren't going to put it online, but you liked your match and you were just like, I'd like to have my match just for me to post?
No, actually, like we've been quite good at filming everything, commentary and hand videos and hard cam. We have those at every show. Like that's our content. Like without that, how else can you tell people what is going on in the wrestling scene? So,
well, like you did in the 1980s, just by word of mouth and maybe a magazine. I don't know. I mean, you got to. In the old days, we didn't get footage, but no, I get what you're saying. That's that's how you're gonna learn. You can see what you've done right and wrong. People can learn from their mistakes and even know what to do again. It also gives fans that didn't go to the last show a place to see this.
Yeah, And I mean, like with the kind of the state of the world right now, with social media being so huge, and like that's how people consume content. Like if you don't have any video, people won't see it. Not a lot of people will have the patience or to sit and read an article about the wrestling show that happened. Everything needs to be kind of posted to kind of stay in the zeitgeist of people's perception. Like if you don't have video, it's hard to exist. At least that's kind of how I believe it. And so I mean that's and I think everyone within the Swedish wrestling scene understands that. So there's a huge emphasis on getting videos, getting clips, getting photos done. Because without that, people, that's where people are. You gotta meet them where they are. And if they're online, if they're on Facebook or Instagram, or
right now we're in the social media age, that if you can capture them in 3 to 15 seconds, then you probably can sell it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, I mean, and to your point, like watching back matches, like there's always going to be those things where you find things that you could have done better, or you find scenarios that you learn from. Seeing other people's matches, sometimes we can't sit in Gorilla and watch matches that's going on, so we have to watch them after the fact. And so the only thing you can kind of go on by is like the crowd's reaction. How are they reacting to these spots? How are they reacting to this match? So that's kind of how we pick up and learn from each other.
So where can people find you on social media?
My social media game isn't the best, but I would say that Kenzein _pro wrestler is my main place to be. If you want to follow me, I have I put my highlights there. I put my promos there. I put some match clips there as well. So yeah, if you are interested in knowing a bit about me and my journey, you'll see kind of like from when I first started, my first characters, and then how I've grown from then on. Please follow Kenzein _pro wrestling on Instagram.
Versasi, do you have any final questions or thoughts?
No, I want to go, like I said, like as always, you bring me these people to talk to, and now I want to see more of their matches or see their match. I want to see how he won that title for sure, and I want to now see the outcome of him defending the title. So now, again, more wrestling to watch. Exciting stuff happening, and I'm here for it. I love it.
Great.
All this wrestling makes my wife happy because now she can watch whatever show she wants. I'm just on my phone watching the wrestling. So Stockholm wrestling brings families together.
Well, yeah, and like I can recommend some people from that scene that I think you guys should also talk to.
Send them all. We will take them all. We love this scene. Right now, we are loving the Nordic scene of wrestling. Like I said, it's really entertaining. It's something different. It's something refreshing and revitalizing. And it's great seeing it unfold and see all these characters and wrestlers that may have not have been known, before, because we didn't even get to see them,
And I if I can say a few words, thanking you guys for bringing me on here primarily, sorry for bringing me on, but primarily putting eyes on the wrestling scene in the Nordics and in Sweden. It's guys like you that can help us put us on the map as well, and I appreciate you guys bringing me on and putting a kind of a spotlight on what we do here, and hopefully we can grow and deliver something that the world hasn't seen before, a different kind of wrestling perhaps, or get more people to understand that exists in Sweden. So thank you so much.
The pleasure is ours. So really, I mean, like some organizations like Slam Wrestling, I've been following for. Geez, I think since my beginning my podcasting, which was back in 2020, and just seeing it grow and everything, it's really great that Stockholm Wrestling, Slam Wrestling, is willing to give the time to two small podcasters in the United States.
I mean, 81,000. That's not small to me.
not too shabby. It's not too shabby. Not too shabby, but I don't like to gloat. I'm not one to gloat. But no, I do appreciate taking the time, especially, from being overseas, making it all work, time differences and everything else, It's not the easiest thing to make happen, but you guys always do make it happen. Sometimes easier than the local talent, I'll be honest. So I appreciate that.
Well, we're excited to be seen. So keep up the good work, and thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone who listened and watched. This is Killing the Business Worldwide. Until next time, goodbye and good night.
Peace.